Outer Orange.
No, she's not. Today, I'm here to talk about Arkhite, my kind of differences and changes and feelings about this deck, because my gosh, have they changed a lot since the first reveal of the card. So this deck is coming out in set 3, basically in a couple days, depending on when I drop this video. And this was one of the decks that I was actually most anticipating to play, and actually a deck that I was probably going to go ahead and take to BCS. And then I was very disappointed when I started testing it for, kind of where I went down the pipeline and how I basically got to the decision that this deck is nowhere near like the deck that I thought it was going to be. So we're gonna go talk about it. It's kind of a new Vanguard. She kind of got a revamped effect that's basically better than the old one. And I'm kind of still in the process of testing. Maybe my opinions will change. I don't think they will. But basically this deck got an upgrade, but it's actually strange enough so fair that it doesn't really feel like an upgrade. But we're gonna kind of break down the deck a little bit. The ride line is basically pretty simple. You just run the Arkhite ride line, and you have the actual Vanguard itself, which also can be regarded as the other Arkhite, the old one. You can basically Energy Blast 2, and you can send 3 monster cards from your drop into the order zone, which is basically where you'll be hoarding all your monsters. And then it says when your rearguard monster's card name is placed, you can put the same card as that rearguard from your order zone into drop, and that unit gets 10k. Basically, the easiest way to explain this is when you call a card from hand, and then a 1 in the order zone will trigger, you'll send that one to drop, and then the card you place from hand gets 10k. And you can do this basically over and over again and kind of loop it. And then choose a final effect that says when this unit attacks a Vanguard, +1, choose up to 2 cards with each with monster and their different card names from the order zone called the rearguard circle. Now, it all sounds really good on paper. That it's like you got multi-attack, you got re-looping, you got all this stuff. So Orange, what's with this deck? Why don't you like it so much? It's really just the fact that the way the deck works and how much effort you're putting into it just doesn't really maximize the outcome, if that makes sense. This deck's biggest, I think, high end is the fact that it deck ends like crazy with this card right here. This card basically says when you put in the order zone, you reveal the top 5 cards of your deck. 1 monster goes to hand out of the top 5, and 1 goes to drop out of the top 5. So you're basically deck tending 2, and you can basically proc this multiple times. Obviously, since it's the grade 1, you can do it on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and so on and so forth, right? And the good part about this is in the past, Arkhite was very restricted towards what you can call, or was it towards what you can play, what you can't play if you didn't have 3 orders in the order zone. But now it actually just doesn't matter anymore, and that's a big upgrade to the deck. As before, you'd have to really rely on just like on 1 card that you have to constantly draw into. And again, you're like, well, why is this deck suck? Well, the thing about it is like all it really does is like kind of filter if you find the right pieces, and then if you don't find the right pieces, you're kind of stuck. This deck is extremely reliant on Persona, which is another big issue I have with this deck. There's no Persona looping or similar to looping, sort of like how other decks are doing. Keep in mind, Shotodoji also drops in the same set as this deck is dropping, and that deck has way better search and way better ways to filter through its deck than this deck does. There's just so many little things that kind of differentiate. Now, some people were really hyping up this card, including myself. This is the Light Ray Monster Raverist. I kind of read the card a little bit further, and I was like, wait, it doesn't really work how I thought it worked. I kind of thought it was a little bit more, better. Basically, it says when this unit is placed on rearguard by the ability of an Arkhite Vanguard, so keep in mind it can only activate through the Vanguard ability. It says when this unit attacks, you can counterblast 1 and choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and it gets -5k until the turn. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets +10k in a crit until end of turn. This unit can also not be chosen by your opponent's card effects. The second effect will stay regardless, but the first effect is specifically required to the Vanguard effect. So basically what this means is you have to counterblast 1 to do this effect, first of all. Second thing, can only activate this through her effect specifically, or the other one. The old one works this way too. You also call for her effect as well. But basically, you can only activate that. It's 2 counterblast to waste, because it can waste a counterblast on her, and then to put another counterblast on this guy. And then on top of that, she only calls different card names, so you can only do this once per turn anyway. And that is just a lot of asking for basically a -5k and a 10k, technically a 20k depending on how you set up your stuff. So basically it's a 20k into an 8k, or sorry, a 33k into an 8k, which is a 25k shield, which does matter, and the crit does matter, but it's not enough. I feel like there's just something kind of missing here. Like, I really was kind of hoping for like a double crit turn where you have the crits on both sides, but you just can't have it all, I guess, and it just doesn't really work. On top of the fact that you have to really work hard to set this card up every single turn, sending it to drop, keep bringing it back to the order zone to then bring it back out with Arkhite, do it all over again, then you have to have the counterblast for, which is another issue, and so on and so forth. And then you could run Bulbamine to kind of fix that problem. Bulbamine is the card I really don't like. It's a monster card, by the way. I just really don't like the card, but you can run it to kind of fix the counterblast issues if you want to go down that route. I'm not really a big fan of it, but you can go down that route to kind of fix that problem. So it's like, so there's that. Next we have this card. This card is basically an Orphis card, but written for Arkhite is the way I like to look at it. At the end of attack, you have an Arkhite with a grade 3 or greater, then you can retire this unit and draw a card. Very nice effect, actually. I do like this one because it self-retires itself, which means that when you call cards over, like with Arkhite's ability, he'll just disappear and kind of do his thing. He also gets power, which is also really nice, but that's basically all he does. He's not bad. Then we have this card. This is a promo card that was also really good. Basically, if you have the order, if it's in your order zone, you can Soul Blast 2 and call it back out, gets plus 5k. Now here comes the second problem this deck has, and that's Soul. Sometimes you just run out of Soul, and the deck Soul Blasts a lot, and yes, Bobo can kind of fix this, but running Bobo Mine just to fix these issues kind of feels really bad. But this card's pretty good. When it's placed, you can basically kind of cycle through. You can choose a unit that isn't a Sentinel from your order zone, bring it to hand, and if you do, you can choose a card from the hand. Artist, that's also kind of nice. You can kind of go through your deck a little, go through your order zone a little bit if there's certain pieces you're looking for. Bring a card. We have the shield guy still. This is an old card. He basically says one place you can shove a monster card from your drop to the order zone, and it also gets 5k shield, and that's on guard circle, which means that if you were to intercept with it, it also gets 10k, so you can rush early with these cards and then intercept with them for 20k. Pretty nice. We have this card that basically lets you bounce this itself back to hand, which is also nice. It gets 5k shield on guard if you have 2 orders in your order zone, and also, which you'll always have 2 orders in your order zone, by the way. Just make that clear, that will always happen. 3 maybe not so much, but 2 guaranteed. About this boosted an Arkhite Vanguard. By the way, you can do this early. You can still bounce it back to hand. This is pretty nice because you're basically bouncing back 10k shield all the time. Maybe in the future this card will see better play. This is the card that can kind of replace for Bobo Mine, by the way. This is kind of the slot that I would replace it with personally, because you don't necessarily need this card. It's just really useful because you can just keep bouncing 10k shield, and also you can call it and then, you know, send a monster away and then bounce that card back to hand, block with it, and then, you know, move all your cards back into the order zone. That kind of rinse and repeat. Next we have this guy. This isn't a monster card. This is also another place where you can put Bobo Mine here instead. I really like this card because it searches for cards, and that's really important. It also is a 13k booster all the time, basically if you have 2 or more orders, which you always will. And at the end of the battle, this unit boosts if you have an order zone. If your order zone has a set order, you can shove it into Soul like a top 5 and choose a grade 2 or greater, or a set order from among them and reveal it, add to hand, which is very big. It also goes into Soul, which kind of helps with a little bit of the Soul issues. And long story short, you basically can get everything here except this grade 1. But all you get, the 2s, the 2, you get Persona, all this stuff you have access to, which is also really nice. And then you have perfect guards because they're monster perfect guards. After that, it's just triggers, which you'll be deck ending, and we'll be seeing those quite a lot. And then we have the twin cast. This could be any Regalia's piece. I just really like twin cast, and this deck doesn't really care which Regalia's piece you're running. You could run Caliburn if you want, just to draw extra cards and counter charge, or you know, whatever option you want to do. It does fulfill that soul and counter charging issue that this deck tends to have. So you know, that's another thing you can think about. But anyway, long story short, I was very hyped about this deck. Like, this is one of those decks where like, oh yeah, oh god, I'm so excited for this deck. And then I started actually testing it, and I was like, oh my god. Oh no, what am I doing? What am I? Oh, I can't take this deck to BCS. And I know this is a random video. This isn't like my typical videos. Normally I'm like talking about a deck and hyping it up. I actually kind of wanted to do a different angle for once and talk about decks that you maybe shouldn't take to BCS, or decks you should probably avoid because there might be better versions of this deck. That's basically how I view this deck. I view this deck as it's a fair deck, and then there's another deck like it that just does what this does, but better. And I'm going to use Shodoji as a perfect example of that, because basically how it is. Shodoji is also very similar. It's restricted to it likes to work with an archetype stealth. It also likes to cycle through a certain, like, it likes to loop through a certain mechanic, which in this case is monsters, but in Shodoji it's the stealth fiends that go back into soul and bring themselves out. It also likes to multi-attack, all that kind of fun stuff. Also, you know, filters through its stack just like Arkhite does. Like, so, you know, they're kind of similar. But the difference is that deck has more tools that aren't required to set up so aggressively like this deck is. And I think that's where my shift kind of went away from this deck. And I for a while thought Arkhite was stronger than Ava, but I actually do not believe that anymore. I do believe if you were to be playing Brandgate decks, I believe Ava is the better choice. I actually think Messiah is another really, really strong choice. We have a couple other ones that are kind of coming out. Belsha's really good. I will say, out of all the Brandgate decks, I actually think this is one of the weaker ones now. I know I'm talking this deck down. It is really good standalone, but you really need to see things in the right order for this deck to really fully shine. And I just don't think that's going to happen. And the other thing, this deck is extremely mentally straining. This is a deck where every decision matters. You have to set up in the perfect way. You can't misplay under this deck, especially if you're going to go BCS with it. Now, granted, if you've been playing Arkhite this whole time, like me, I've been playing this. I've been playing since the original release. I had the original deck maxed out, actually. I really like the deck. Like, it was one of my favorites. But long story short, if you've been playing the deck for a while, you kind of already know. But if you're someone that's picking the deck up, or someone that is not the best at constant sequencing, because this is a huge sequencing deck. You have to do everything in the right order. The minute you do it in the wrong order, you basically lost the game. And it's actually very tilting sometimes. That's another thing. I think as a mentally straining deck, this is not the deck to want to take to like an 8-rounder, a 9-rounder. This is definitely more like a 5-rounder, or maybe like a locals type of deck. And that's another thing that's kind of like started steering me away from it. I don't want to sit through 9 rounds of constantly making sure everything is in the perfect spot. But anyway, I want to kind of talk about this deck because I do like this deck, and I personally was really excited about it, and I am still excited about it. I'm still gonna make a ton of content about it. I'm still probably gonna make a short about it, kind of discuss it. You know, I'm still getting the cards. I'm still looking forward to it. I'm just personally, if you were to ask me if I'm taking this BCS, at least for this season, the season that we have coming up between now and probably the end of the year, the answer is no. And now you know one deck that I'm definitely not taking. And by the way, I have taken this deck to a Spring Fest in the past. Probably wasn't the best decision, but I have taken it because that's how much I love the deck. That's how much I enjoyed it. So this is a kind of like a love-hate relationship with my pet deck. And I'm talking about pet deck that, no, I'm not making the same mistake twice. But anyway, I just want to talk about it real quick. We just got the deck lock stuff in it, and I just wanted to kind of go over it and just, you know, randomly shit talk a deck for no freaking reason. You guys should see my reaction. I found out this card doesn't work the way it does. It was pretty funny. Wait, hold up. Let me read this card again. When this is placed on rear guard by the ability of your Vanguard with Arkhite in its card name. Oh, I can only do it through the Arkhite's ability. Shop if you do want to still pick up Arkhite even after everything I just said, which is perfectly fine. It's very normal. This is a very fun deck. A lot of people like the art style of the deck. You know, I really like monsters and aliens. I think they're super cool. But if you want to pick this up, you can. At VCards.shop, code orange for all your goodies. Please like and subscribe. I am trying to get to 5K. We're pretty close. We're getting there. We're not that far away, and hopefully we can get there by the end of the year. So please feel free to like, subscribe. Again, 50 cards to shop if you need any of your goodies. Code orange for all of that. And then guys, peace out. Das vidania. I'll see you guys in a future video. Bye.